Insellmilkom eżisti spettaturi. Nilqakom għal programm ieħor mis-sensiela Solidarjetà Maħutna Persegwitati. Imtella mill-Uffiċċju ta' Malta tal-Aid to the Church in Need. Magħrufin ukoll bħala ACN Malta. Illum għandna magħna lil Neville Kyrke-Smith li huwa d-Direttur Nazzjonali Emeritu tal-Fera tar-Renju Unit tal-Aid to the Church in Need. L-ACN hija fondazzjoni pontifiċja li tappoġġja lil Kristjani diskriminati u oppressati madwar id-dinja. Ejja nisimgħu xi punti ewlenin tal-biografija tiegħu. Neville Kyrke-Smith serva bħala Direttur Nazzjonali għal aktar minn 30 sena. Mill-1991 sakemm irtira fl-Għid il-Kbir tal-2022. Taħt il-gwida tiegħu l-ACN fl-Ingilterra kibret minn organizzazzjoni żgħira għal vuċi prominenti globali, filwaqt li żiedet b'10 darbiet l-għajnuna li kienet qed tipprovdi. Fost l-inizjattivi ewlenin, Neville stabbilixxa l-kampanja annwali Red Wednesday biex iqajjem kuxjenza dwar il-persekuzzjoni reliġjuża. Huwa introduċa rapport li joħroġ kull sentejn bl-isem ta' Persecuted and Forgotten, li ma' rapport jitratta l-qagħda tal-oppressjoni tal-insara fid-dinja. F'Diċembru tal-2021, Neville Kyrke-Smith ingħata l-unur mill-Papa Franġisku ta' Kavallier tal-Ordni Ekwestri ta' San Girgor il-Kbir. Il-Papa taħt dan l-unur bħala rikonoxximent ta' 30 sena servizz lill-Knisja persegwitata. Oriġinarjament, Neville kien saċerdot tal-Knisja Anglikana fl-Ingilterra. Fl-1991, Neville ikkonverta għar-reliġjon Kattolika u ftit wara beda jmexxi l-ACN fl-Ingilterra. Welcome, Neville, to our program. Can you tell us about persecution of Christians, particularly in some countries? Is so dangerous that hundreds of and thousands of Christians have to abandon their homes and belongings and escape to safer areas in their respective countries. Aid to the Church in Need assists these Christians so that they don't abandon their countries. What experiences can you recount in this regard?
Thank you, Stephen. It's a great pleasure to be with you and to talk to the wonderful friends of Aid to the Church in Need here in Malta.
Huwa onur għalija illi qed hawnhekk u nirringrazzjak u anke li nitkellem mal-ħbib tagħna tal-Aid to the Church in Need.
I worked for the charity and ran the charity in the UK, and internationally I helped as a senior director for 32 years, and I think I'd hoped that by the time after 10 or 20 or 30 years the persecution of Christians would have decreased, but in fact in recent years it has increased.
Ilu 32 sena f'dan il-qasam u kien jissoponi li biżmien il-persekuzzjoni tonqos, però sfortunatament kif qed jgħidilna stess qed tiżdied.
And when I first began with Aid to the Church in Need in 1991, I went into the former Soviet Union to Ukraine.
Meta bdejt fl-1991, mort fil-ex-Unjoni Sovjetika u l-Ukrajna.
And you saw a church re-emerging from years of suffering, especially the Eastern Rite
U kont tista' tara knisja li qed terġa' tirreżurektja toħroġ minn tagħha.
You know, the Ukrainian Greek Catholics, the Eastern Rite Church loyal to Rome had suffered so much, Roman Catholics too. And the church revived at that time, and the number of vocations, I think were 1991 there were 300
numru ta' vokazzjonijiet dak iż-żmien kienu beħetu ieħor 300 ta' 300 saċerdot.
And 20 years later there were 3,000 priests.
20 sena wara kien hemm 3,000 qassis.
The average age had changed from in the 70s to age 30 of those priests.
L-età medja tagħhom bidlet minn 70 għal 30 sena.
But I remember on that trip going to some of the graves, meeting people who've been sent to Siberia and then come back.
Huwa jiftakar imur fuq l-oqbra u anke kellem in-nies li ġew mibgħuta s-Siberja u reġgħu ġew lura.
And not only in Ukraine, but indeed in my trips to Russia over the years.
Mhux biss fl-Ukrajna imma anke fir-Russja.
I met with some of the priests and faithful who'd been sent to the Gulag camps.
Iltaqa' ma' assisin u nies li ġew mibgħuta fil-kampijiet tal-gulags.
And the millions who disappeared, who were sent to the frozen wastelands of the East.
U l-miljuni li intilfu ma jafux sar minnhom li ġew mibgħuta f'postijiet l-iktar imbeda u l-iktar kesħin.
In the 1990s and the 2000s, they were spoken about for the first time. The history of what had happened in the Soviet Union was spoken about openly, even in Russia at that stage.
Fis-sena 2000 dawn l-affarijiet bdew jiġu mitkellma fil-miftuħ.
And not only just in Ukraine, but obviously in Poland and in other parts of Eastern Europe, the church came alive again.
Mhux biss fil-Russja, manka fl-Ukrajn u fil-Polonja, il-Knisja reġgħet qabdet ritmu ta' risorġiment.
And it's important, I think, to note for today, with the situation in Ukraine, for example, that the faith of the people, over half the people are practicing Christians in Ukraine.
Illum nofs il-popolazzjoni ġol Ukrajna hija ta' Kristjani prattikanti.
Yeah. And there's been a revival in faith. And so often we have seen at Aid the Church in Need in different parts of the world, where Christians suffer, the faith then comes alive again.
Kif qed naraw fejn il-fidi issofri dbati, il-fidi terġa' tirkupra, terġa' ikun hemm qawmien tal-fidi.
It's Tertullian, wasn't it, who said, the blood of the martyrs is the seed of Christians, of Christianity. And you see that it's through the cross that the hope of the resurrection comes.
Yes.
So if you to talk about today's situation, especially I had the privilege of traveling to many parts of the world, Stephen, over the years.
Kelli l-privileġġ li nmur f'diversi partijiet tad-dinja.
And if I looked in particular at the Middle East, the situation there,
Speċjalment fil-Vant Nofsani,
which obviously concerns us all at this time.
Li jikkonċerna lilna wkoll anke f'dan iż-żminijiet.
If you take somewhere like Lebanon, for example,
Ma jekk tieħu eżempju bħal Libanu, pereżempju,
as Pope Leo recognizes, the presence of Christians is absolutely vital.
Bħalma il-Papa il-Jun stess jirrikonoxxi il-preżenza tal-insara hemmhekk hija vitali.
I remember speaking to Muslims and Christians alike on my trips to Lebanon and hearing that we need the Christian presence here as a bridge builder.
U jiftakar jitkellem sew mal-Musulmani kif ukoll mal-insara li l-koll qalulu li hemm bżonn tal-insara hemmhekk bħala bridge builders, bennejja tal-pontijiet.
It was said that the Sunnis have the Muslim world generally behind them. The Shiites, Hezbollah, had Iran behind it. And the Christians, who do they have? Just the faithful of the West supporting them.
Kif qed jgħid sew is-Sunni, kif ukoll ix-Xija huma bbekkjati, imma l-insara min għandhom jibbekkjhom.
And that the president of Lebanon is a Christian.
Il-President tal-Libanu huwa Kristjan.
And perhaps a third of the population is Christian in Lebanon.
U x'aktarx li terz tal-popolazzjoni hija Kristjana fil-Libanu.
And the Christians there have suffered so much and have yet been opening their doors to the refugees from different parts of the Middle East to help them, especially the Syrians who came to stay, the Syrian Christians and others who came to stay.
Fil-fatt, Libanu laqa ħafna mill-migranti li kienu qed jaħarbu minn pajjiżhom fosthom minn ġo Sirja u laqgħuhom ġewwa Libanu.
So I think with all the suffering that's taken place, and I remember meeting people in the Bekaa Valley who'd fled. I remember one father talking to me. He said, my son who was with him there, he said, we walked over the bodies of the people as we left Homs in Syria, and we managed to escape. And now here we have a small house, which the church has helped us with.
ħafna nies milli kienu qed jaħarbu qalu li imxew fuq l-iċma mejta u ma jaħarbu u li hawnhekk issa ġewwa l-Libanu sabu kien fejn jistgħu jgħixu.
And his wife then added, yes, we not only have that, but most importantly, we have our faith.
Importanti li iktar milli għandhom fejn jgħixu ma għandhom il-fidi tagħhom.
We have Jesus and we have Mary.
Għandhom il-Ġesu u għandhom il-Marija magħhom.
And so, not just in Lebanon, but on my trips, for example, to Iraq in the past.
So, mela mhux fil-Lebanu biss imma anke fl-Iraq fil-passat fejn mort bħala biex naraw x'qed jiġri.
Aid to the church in need provided so much help to the refugees there.
Aid to the church in need ipprovdiet għajnuna għal daw ir-refuġjati.
Other charities did, but Aid to the Church in Need was probably the first charity there to help during the war with ISIS.
Organizzazzjonijiet oħra kienu hemm ukoll, però Aid to the Church in Need tista' tgħid kienet minn tal-ewwel biex tgħin lin-nies mill-isfreġju li kienet jagħmel l-ISIS.
I remember meeting an old lady sitting on the pavement, the stone pavement in a place called Al-Kosh, 10 minutes from where ISIS actually were at that time.
Jiftakar jiltaqa' ma' mara anzjana li kienet għadha fuq il-bankina f'xi post Karkosh 10 minuti l-bogħod minn fejn l-ISIS kienu qegħdin f'dak iż-żmien.
And she and her whole family had fled in terror from ISIS.
Hi u l-familja tagħha kienu ħarbu biex jevitaw l-ISIS.
She was aged 89.
Kienet bej wieħed u ieħor kellha 89 sena.
And she spoke in Aramaic.
U kienet qed titkellem bl-Aramajk.
And her message, her request was, I am praying for you, will you pray for me?
U l-messaġġ tagħha kien jien qed nitlob għalik, inti tista' titlob għalija?
And for me, that message is a bit like St. John Henry Newman, heart speaking to heart, cor ad cor loquitur.
U għalija din isa bħalma qal Sir John Henry Newman li qed nitkellmu qalb ma' qalb.
And I think for Aid to the Church in Need, with the suffering, with the martyrs, who many of whom we have helped, the recent martyrs were helped by Aid to the Church in Need. You think of Father Ragid Ghani, who we helped and we knew. You think of the martyrs in different parts of the world.
U meta tara l-għajnuna li tat l-Aid to the Church in Need anke l-martri ta' żmienna fosthom Father Ghani.
Yeah, it's the prayers of the benefactors of Aid to the Church in Need and the faithful throughout the world that sustains those who are enduring the way of the cross today.
U għat-talb tal-benefatturi tal-ACN illi qed isostni il-mixja lej is-salib tal-lum.
And I think your benefactors of ACN here in Malta, the faithful here, should know too, that as that lady said, the old lady in Al-Kosh, they are praying for us. They are praying for you as well. They are praying for you and your needs. And people have said to me so often on my trips over the years, we know it's not easy to be a Christian in the West today.
Illum saret diffiċli ħafna li tkun Kristjan, li tgħix ta' Kristjan.
With discrimination,
Bid-diskriminazzjoni,
with ridicule,
żufjet,
with a political correctness that doesn't take religion or doesn't want to discuss religion seriously.
Minħabba raġunijiet politiċi li ma jridux in konsiderazzjoni r-reliġjonijiet.
And it's very difficult to bring children up in the faith today.
Huwa diffiċli ħafna biex ittella tfal f'ambjent ta' fidi llum.
And those who are really persecuted and oppressed know that there are different needs here. The Christians here need their prayers too.
U dawk li qed jiġu oppressati jafu wkoll li hawnhekk ukoll għandna bżonn it-talb għal bżonnijiet ta' kif għadna kif semmejna.
And finally, just on the Middle East, I think people at the moment will be asking, what hope is there? for the madness of politics, which we see.
Fuq il-vant nofsani, in-nies jistaqsu x'tama hemm.
I met with Sister Annie just a few weeks ago from Syria.
Għadni kemm iltqajt ma' Sister Annie li hija mis-Sirja.
She was visiting a home community, a religious community, the Religious of Jesus and Mary.
Li kienet qiegħda tiltaqa' u marret iżżur il-komunità tagħha ta' Jesus of Mary.
With some sisters from Syria.
Ma' sorjiet ta' Sirja.
And she said, Neville, we are surrounded by the noise and brutality of war day in, day out.
Għaltlu Neville, għaltlu qegħdin niġu ċirkondati bil-ħsejjes tal-gwerra day in, day out, kuljum, ta' kuljum, lejl u nar.
It is madness, she said.
Huwa tal-ġen.
But we are still alive.
Ma aħna still għadna ħajjin.
And we are still witnessing to God's love.
U għadna wkoll nixdu x-xhieda tal-imħabba tal-Alla.
I remember once when I met her in Beirut, and she said, we are still awaiting the resurrection. It may be Eastertide, but we are still awaiting the resurrection. We're still enduring the way of the cross. Our Gethsemane continues.
Fil-fatt, hija qaltlu meta ltaqa' magħha f'Beirut illi aħna għadhom qegħdin jistennew il-reżoluzzjoni.
And despite what the media say, and many say, it's very difficult for Christians in Syria now whose numbers have been decimated by all that they've gone through and all that people have suffered there.
U tgħid il-medja llum in-numru ta' nsara u naqas drastikament hemmhekk.
But the witness of love, showing love to all and helping the Christian community survive is absolutely vital in the Middle East today.
Imma x-xhieda ta' mħabba lejn dawn in-nies hija vitali għallum, mod speċjali.
Yeah. Maybe also your viewers will be interested. I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to say, and I think I can say it now, that the Prince of Wales, now the King Charles.
Nista' wkoll ngħid illum naqsam magħkom illum il-Prinċep ta' Wales.
We used to have many meetings with him.
Li kellna ħafna inkontri miegħu.
And we're involved in special services which
were put on. U konna involuti anke f'servizzi speċjali miegħu.
And he actually gave help to aid to the Church in Need from the Prince of Wales Trust.
U kien ukoll qed jgħin il-Aid to the Church in Need mit-trust tiegħu stess.
To help more than 20 families move back in Iraq to the Nineveh plains.
Reġġa lura mal-20 familja lura fil-pjan ta' Nineveh.
And his thanks to Aid to the Church in Need have publicly been expressed.
Huwa grazzi għal Aid to the Church in Need.
And I think he sees ACN, as I said, as a building block in the Middle East in all our work.
U jara l-Aid to the Church in Need bħala il-bennejja ta' biex naqdu lin-nies flimkien.
Working through the Christian communities there.
U naħdmu permezz tal-komunitajiet Kristjani hemmhekk. Very good. The international media rarely cover the subject of religious freedom, notwithstanding that religious freedom forms part of the Charter of the United Nations. How widespread is the threat to religious freedom in the world at the moment?
It has been part of the remit, I think, of Aid to the Church in Need to work with others, Stephen, to try and raise the issues of religious freedom.
Huwa parti mill-missjoni tal-Aid to the Church in Need kif ukoll mal-oħrajn biex toħloq kuxjenza dwar dan is-suġġett.
And first of all in Britain, then throughout the world, ACN has been involved in various fora, a forum back in the UK for religious freedom and belief, the right to the freedom of belief.
Fil-fatt l-Aid to the Church in Need ġewwa Renju Unit hija involuta f'diversi fora fuq dan il-kuntest.
And in Britain, for example, ACM contributed to a special report commissioned by the government on religious freedom.
U fil-fatt l-Aid to the Church in Need tar-Renju Unit kienet għenet f'rapport li ħareġ il-gvern fuq religious freedom, fuq il-libertà reliġjuża.
And partly as a result of that, this Red Wednesday, which you mentioned earlier on.
U bħala riżultat ta' hekk żviluppat dak li qed jiġi msejjaħ Red Wednesday.
Buildings are lit up once a year in red.
Fil-fatt il-bini qed jiġi mixawl bl-aħmar darba fis-sena
like the cry almost of blood.
li jissimbolizza id-dem ta' daw il-martri li qegħdin imutu
For the right to be able to express your faith,
għad-dritt tagħhom li jesprimu l-fidi tagħhom.
thinking of those who have given their lives for witnessing to God.
Taħseb f'dawk in-nies illi taw ħajjithom biex ikunu xhieda tal-Alla.
And thankfully, many buildings throughout the world now lit up red. In the past, in Great Britain, we even had the Houses of Parliament lit red.
Illum naraw anke f'diversi pajjiżi madwar id-dinja li qed jinxtelu binijiet prominenti biex ifakru dan l-avveniment.
Yeah, and from Brazil, throughout the world, as you will know, Stephen.
Even here in Malta, we had
Yes,
the
I know,
occasion to...
I remember it well. Yeah.
Anka u Malta ġieli xelna ġifieri diversi postijiet prominenti biex infakru f'din
But there is an issue that despite this public side and some engagement in the issues, that there is a reluctance for governments to take seriously religious freedom.
Però minkejja l-isforzi li qed isiru, ċertu gvernijiet mhumiex qed jieħdu dan is-settur bis-serjetà.
We think in particular of Nigeria.
Naħsbu f'mod partikolari fin-Niġerja.
And when we used to have discussions about Nigeria with politicians and especially with the government officials,
Kien ikollna diversi diskussjonijiet mal-politikanti u uffiċjali tal-gvern.
we would take bishops and sisters to see them, to give their witness to them.
U konna nieħdu diversi biex isfijiet u sorijiet biex jaraw daw l-affarijiet.
And the response would be, oh, this doesn't have to do with religion. It's to do with tribalism. It has to do with ecology. It has to do with land rights.
Però sfortunatament qed jiġu interpretati li dina m'għandax taqsam xejn ma' reliġjon imma ma' drittijiet tal-art u tribalizmu.
And even if we think of Nigeria today, where Christians are deliberately targeted at Christmas and Easter and Holy Week.
U llum niftakru f'dawk l-insara li qed jiġu letteralment ittargetjati fil-ġimgħa l-kbira fil-miliet.
Where youth involved in catechism and in devotion before the Blessed Sacrament have been killed.
Fejn diversi żgħażagħ ġew maqtula waqt li kienu qegħdin f'adorazzjoni.
You have to admit that Christianity is being targeted.
Irridu nammettu li l-Kristjaneżmu qed jiġi ttargetjat fil-mira ta' dawn in-nies.
ACN is not saying Muslims are not also targeted, but Christians are deliberately targeted because of their faith.
L-ACN mhijiex qed tgħid li l-Musulmani mhumiex qed jiġu fil-mira, però l-insara wkoll.
And that is one example, I think, of
where
religious freedom is not taken seriously because the faith matter is not taken seriously.
Ta' fejn is-suġġett ta' libertà reliġjuża mhux qed jittieħed bis-serjetà. Thank you very much, Neville, for those thoughts. Dan il-programm twassal lilkom mill-Uffiċċju ta' Malta tal-Aid to the Church in Need, VO 2227, li jinsab f'35 appartament numru 3, Triq l-Imdina għat-Tart. Ittella bl-appoġġ tal-UTV, l-uniku stazzjon soċjo-reliġjuż f'Malta. Grazzi tal-attenzjoni tagħkom u nsellmilkom.